So today's Cardinal lesson, we're talking about doing rollovers and transfers of money out of your 401k or 403b or out of an existing IRA, or what's going on a lot now is where people that have pension plans, their employers at retirement are offering them a cash out. So they're going to receive a big hunk of money that they haven't paid taxes on yet. And so we're going to talk today really just about how important this is. So I want to bring Tom on to really talk about why we're doing this video.
Yeah, and so we're doing this video because you might only transfer money out of a 401k or a retirement account once or twice in your whole entire life. So you don't do this very often. And when money is in movement, that's where mistakes happen. That's where you can get something wrong. You miss one step and it can cause all sorts of problems. And so we want to walk through sort of the proper way to do this. And if you have questions, I'd recommend you call us. We can walk you through it. Even if you're not doing it with us, you don't want to get this wrong. And so we're here to help, but that's really why we're doing it, is to give you sort of the outline of things you need to do and be careful about.
So most folks that hire us to do a financial plan right at retirement or a little before retirement, they're going to come into us and their money's still in their 401k. They might be still working, and they've got the biggest hunk of their money is right there. They haven't paid taxes on it yet. And so we're going to do that. And then they need that money to live off of during retirement. I mean, it's just, whereas 30 years, 40 years ago, our job was a little easier because a lot of people had pensions, and they just, when they turned 65, they wouldn't even need to come to somebody like us, or 64 or when 60, they just start their pension and they've already gone through the formula. Well, now most people have their assets in a 401k or a 403b or some type of vehicle like that. Or if they do have a pension, their employer is offering them one of these cash outs. So how do we help people? And this video is really going over all the stuff that we tell people when they come into us. And unfortunately, sometimes people have already done this rollover business before they even come to us. And then, it's much harder to fix problems than it is to prevent them. So our first step that we do is, once they decide they want to engage us to handle it, is we're going to open up on an institutional platform under our management a Schwab or Fidelity account, an IRA account. And that's going to be either or both a traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. And there's going to be no money in it. It's just going to be all laid out, and it's going to be ready to receive the money. So that's the first step, because you don't want to go start initiating something with your 401k unless you got a place to put it. So that's step number one. And what I want to emphasize, when you're doing any of this stuff, when the money goes in movement, my advice is that you don't touch the money, that you have it go from custodian to custodian. So that would be from the 401k at your employer, who's the custodian, whoever that is, and they would take the money and they're going to send it to Schwab or Fidelity in the name of your account. You're never going to touch the money. So you've got, it's a non-taxable event. Okay, extremely important. Now I want to bring Tom on, and I want to just talk a little bit about how this works if you're getting money out of a 401k.
Yeah, and so like Hans said, the first step is to set up an account with a custodian. We use Schwab or Fidelity. You could use other institutions like Vanguard or something, but you need to have an account set up to receive the money from the 401k. So that's step number one. Once that account has been established, what we then do is, most companies, is they can do this over the phone. Some you have to fill out a form, but we will call the 401k. When we're doing it, we do it on a three-way call. You're on the line with us and the custodian, and we call the 401k custodian and request a rollover to these different accounts. And so we call them, we say we want to do a rollover. They need to talk to you to make sure it's okay to talk to us. Some of the very main important things we want to make sure that happen is the check is made out to the custodian. So let's use Schwab for an example. Is you want that check, and we have this on the board. We're going to use Mary Smith, so just a fictitious person, but Mary Smith is wanting to roll over her 401k. That check needs to be made out to Schwab, FBO, which stands for the benefit of Mary Smith. That's real important because now that check is not coming to her. It's not something she could cash in her personal bank account. That's how we avoid any tax withholdings, avoid things we'll go over in a second on the 60-day rollover. But so the check is made out to Schwab, FBO, Mary Smith. Most 401ks have to mail that check to Mary Smith's address. So she's actually going to receive the check, but it's made out to the proper person, and then she mails the check to Schwab. And we help facilitate all that. But that's real important that we get that right. I do want to bring up the show notes here real quick, and we're going to go over those. I want to show you one of the forms, and we'll talk more about why we have this form in a second. But there's a form in these show notes that really lay out maybe some of the reasons you might want to roll it to an IRA. Because I guess really the first step is deciding whether or not you're going to roll it into an IRA or not. And so let me get to that form here. Again, the show notes, you can find those in the link below it or of this video. They're also on our website. When you're looking at this, it's probably going to be pretty small. So we're going to you don't need to be able to read it on the video. But in the form, it lays out some of the reasons you might want to roll it to an IRA. So some of the main ones are more investment options. Most 401ks have limited investment options. You have a set number of mutual funds you can pick from, and that's kind of it. Inside of IRA, there are a lot more things available. There's, ETFs, mutual funds, structured notes, managed accounts. There's lots of different options available in an IRA, much more so than a 401k. The ability to act quickly. And so if there are market conditions that are changing and we feel or you feel like there needs to be a change into the account, we can do that very quickly inside the IRA. You have the professional management of that account. We're watching it specific to your plan we've written, as opposed to just, in the 401k, you're kind of on your own. You're doing your own thing. The company really has no say in what your investments are. And then some of the other ones, we do a lot of tax planning, which is much easier inside a IRA as opposed to a 401k. Things like Roth conversions and stuff are much more available inside IRAs than 401k. So there's several reasons you might want to roll it to an IRA. It's not on the board, but I do want to hit on just a couple of points of why you might not want to roll it to an IRA. So there are reasons that you might want to leave the money in a 401k. A main one that I can think of is if you are over 70, now I guess it's now at 73, but if you're past your RMD age and you're still working, there's an exception where you do not have to take an RMD out of the 401k, or if it was in an IRA, you would. So if you are still working and you're past that age, it might be better to leave it in a 401k. Another main one is if now we're on the other side, if you're younger. So if you're under 59 and a half, if you're between 55 and 59 and a half, there's some other exceptions, but we'll just stick with that range, and you retire. So let's say there's someone who's 57, you're retiring, your money's in the 401k. Well, if you retired from that company, you can pull that money out without the 10% penalty. Whereas if you rolled it to an IRA, now you have a 10% penalty. And so that would be a reason that you'd want to leave it in the 401k. There's other things. So if you have some questions, call us. We can walk through your specific situation and decide what makes the most sense for you. But those are some of the reasons why you might want to either roll it to an IRA or leave it in the 401k.
Okay. So if you look here and you look at a big reason that people want to do this is they say, well, I don't have enough investment options in my 401k. And if you talk to a lot of financial advisors, they're going to bring that up as the reason that we're getting it out of the 401k and into the IRA, because we're going to have a much more broad choices of investments. And in a managed account that we set up for you, we can use mutual funds, EFTs, ETFs, actually, that is reverse. It's actually, this is supposed to be ETFs, stocks, structured notes, managed accounts. There's a whole variety of investments that can be used. Now, with the 60-day rollovers, and what they mean by 60-day rollovers is you can take possession of the money from your 401k or your IRA, and you can do this yourself, and you can take possession of the money. You can only have it for 60 days, and by the end of 60 days, it needs to be put in an IRA to avoid taxation on the entire amount. So people will have a tendency to do this, like they want to do a short-term loan or they're buying a house and they want to get their hands on the money. And so they say, well, I'm going to get it out, I'm going to put it back. There's other people that just end up with the money. They get it from their employer and then they just find out that they got 60 days to get it put into an IRA. And I'm just saying, you're playing with fire when you do this. And the weekend days and the holidays count. So you can count 60 days from when the check left the 401k or the IRA. You can only do one of these in a 12-month period. So if you have multiple IRAs or multiple 401ks, I mean, you can only do one 60-day rollover in a 12-month period. And if you do more than that, the second, third, and so on are going to be improper distributions, and you're going to have to pay the tax and the penalty if applicable. When a 401k sends you the money, makes the check out to you, they're going to withhold taxes. They have to. And so you're going to have 20% or so, or maybe a little more of that money withheld. So you're only going to get about 80%, 75% of the money. But then within 60 days, you've got to put 100% of the money into an IRA. You can't go get that withholding. You're not going to get that till April next year when you get your tax refund. So that's another point of trouble with this. And the penalty for messing this up is you lose the tax deferred status. You're going to have to pay taxes on the whole amount all in 1 year. So we just wanted to kind of include a warning at the end. And in the Ed Slott program, we study case after case where people have violated this, and then they go to court or they go to the IRS for a private letter ruling to try to get an exception. And some of those are granted, but not a lot of them. This is an area where you just want to go custodian to custodian.
I do want to make one more point on that
Sure.
as well. And so we get some confusion around the 60-day rollover, specifically the one per year. The 60-day rollover is specific to you receiving the money, and the check is made out to you, and you cash it in your bank account. So you have taken custody of the money. That's really what you can only do one per year. A custodian to custodian transfer or rollover, you can do that as many times as you want in a 12-month period. You could move it all around. There are no limitations on that. And so I field a lot of questions where people said, well, I've already done one transfer 6 months ago. I can't do another one until after another 6 months. And that's not right, as long as we do that transfer properly, going from custodian to custodian. The 60-day rollover, that 12-month, the one per 12 month, is only if you take custody of that money.
Very good point, Tom. Okay, let's talk about fiduciary duty. Is that form that Tom pulled up with the show notes is a form because the Department of Labor put forth a regulation that we have to act in your best interest when we're doing these rollovers or when we're recommending or assisting you with taking the money from where it is now and putting it into something under our management. We have to prove that we acted in your best interest. And that is not exactly the same as a fiduciary, but it certainly sounds like it. And we've been fiduciaries all along from 3 different sources. I mean, number one is we're under the SEC. And so the Investment Advisors Act is that because we manage money for a fee, we're fiduciaries and we're held to a fiduciary standard. The second one is through the Department of Labor, which is this best interest thing. And then the third area is under the CFP, is that whenever CFPs, which Tom and I are both CFPs, are doing financial planning, we're held to, and we have a fiduciary duty to you. So this is nothing that's new to us, is doing all this and handling it with care and making sure it's in your best interest. And really, a fiduciary just means that we need to show that the transaction is in your best interest and we're putting your interests ahead of ours. And we have a requirement to disclose conflicts of interest, and we do that. So we disclose to you anything in the whole transaction that there's a conflict of interest. So whole video is really about doing rollovers with caution, getting professional help, getting somebody that knows what they're doing, keeping your paws off the money, and just letting it go custodian to custodian. If you want to get some of the money, we can very easily make withdrawals or help you make withdrawals from your new rolled over Fidelity or Schwab account of a smaller amount very easily. Just don't touch the large sum of money. Okay, so I also want to bring Tom back on, and I just want to talk about today's video within the scope of the financial planning. We talked about IRAs and 401ks. We talked about creating income from your 401k. It's certainly all about taxes. And with that, I want to tell you, I'm Hans Scheil.
And I'm Tom Griffith.
And we thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.